The diary was from a while ago. 21 years according to the dates. It was sealed really well in plastic wrap and stuffed in a watertight bag. If I hadn't hit the thing with my shovel when digging a hole to take a dump, I never would have found it. I wish that would have been the case because I can't stop thinking about the stuff I read. I'm only going to share the fucked up parts, but all I'm leaving out is the lady talking about how she and her husband were spending the month camping and having a good time. There, I just saved you 5 pages. Here's where it got weird. 7/2/1994, 7 a.m. Last night, James and I got woken up by a ridiculously bright flash of lightning. There was no thunder either. James said it must have been heat lightning. He's probably right because it was disgustingly hot and muggy all day, and once the sun went down, it got even more humid. We eventually got back to sleep, and this morning the air seems a little less like a wet sponge. We're hoping to do a 12-mile hike today. 7/2/1994, 8 p.m. I don't even want to write this down because it's so gross. James asked that I do it anyway, so we'll remember to report what we saw once we get to a ranger station. Like I can forget something like this. Anyway, here, all day. While we walked, we saw animals. Deer, birds, raccoons, squirrels, chipmunks, and even a black bear. That's pretty par for the course out here. But when we went off the path for a little bit because, well, James was staring at my ass for the last hour while we walked, and I guess he got some ideas. We were stopped by the sight of something awful, about 100 feet off the path. We were stopped by the sight of something awful about 100 feet off the path. Well, many somethings. Strewn across a wide area that I estimated to be a couple thousand feet were miscarried animals. They were all at different stages of development. It was horrible. 7/3/1994, 2:45 a.m. I'm not able to sleep after the events of yesterday. James, of course, is snoring like a buzzsaw despite the big flashlight lighting up the tent. What the hell could have caused something like that to happen? I've heard about animals going to find a safe place to die when they're sick or old. But I'll be damned if something like what we saw was in any way normal. The heat lightning just appeared again. This time it was 3 flashes clustered together within a couple of seconds. No thunder. Fuck, that's creepy. James is mad that I just kicked him to wake him up and tell him about it. Sorry, hun. 7/3/1994, 7:30 a.m. I got to sleep about an hour after the lightning. Thank God we brought good coffee to brew over the fire. We're gonna do 10 miles. Although it might be a little less because the map says we're getting into a pretty hilly area. Good for the glutes. 7/3/1994, 9:15 p.m. pretty good walk today. We're both going to be pretty sore tomorrow, though. The map does a decent enough job telling us where the hills are going to be, but it's a shitty indicator of how steep they are. On the bright side, and I never thought I'd be one to point it out in my life, we didn't see any more fields of animal fetuses. 7/4/1994, 6:10 a.m. My dickhead husband smuggled some fireworks in his pack and decided to wake me up by setting them off outside the tent while screaming Happy 4th of July. Of course, he was naked as he did all of this and was presenting himself to me through the tent flap while holding a sparkler in each hand. I've come to the conclusion that I love his sense of humor between 8 a.m. and midnight. Anything from 12:01 a.m. until 7:59 a.m. makes me want to choke him. Waking up to explosions and his dick and balls is not quite how I envisioned our mornings together. Take away the explosions part, though, and I'm pretty okay with it. It looks like it's going to rain today. The clouds are low in the sky and it's pretty breezy. Gusty, too. The rain gear we brought before we started our hike kept us dry during storms last week, though, so I'm not too bummed about it. 7/4/1994, 6:30 p.m. No rain while we walked. James shot a rabbit an hour ago, and he's about to skin it and get it ready for the fire. He's making me learn how to do it, too. It's pretty much the last thing I want to do, but there's no reason why he should have to be stuck with the job every time we want to eat some cute forest critter. Here we go. 7/4/1994, 7:30 p.m. I just finished throwing up. As soon as James started working on the rabbit, he saw how thick it must have been while it was alive. Again, I'm only going into details so we can report it to the ranger station, but for fuck's sake, James. If I have to learn how to skin a rabbit, you can learn how to write clear, descriptive sentences. That's a fight for another day. Under its fur, the rabbit was absolutely covered in what looked like big whitehead zits. They were under a lot of pressure too, because when Jane poked one with the tip of the knife, it just burst and flung a grayish white pus like 10 feet into the air onto the tip of my shoe. Cue me throwing up for a half hour while he apologized and tried not to laugh. We still have a good amount of beef jerky and stuff in the food pack, so it's not like we're gonna go hungry, but it would have been nice to have something a little different. The rain finally started and we stuck in the tent. And here's the lightning again. It's flashing over and over and over. Sometimes a few quick bursts, others just single ones that last upwards of 4 or 5 seconds. It's those long ones that scare the shit out of me. I've never seen lightning like that before. James keeps telling me it's not unusual or unheard of, especially at this time of year. It appears to be tapering off a little now, and I'm pretty glad it coincided with rain this time. I guess it really is just plain lightning. James is a pretty reassuring guy. Early bedtime. 7/5/1994, 10:10 a.m. I'm freaking out because James is trying hard not to freak out. We've been up since 6, and when we opened the tent, the ground outside was covered in dead birds, dead bats, and dead bugs. And I mean covered. I guess we didn't hear them hitting the ground because of the rain that started up again while we were sleeping. But We still have no explanation as to why they're all fucking dead. That's not the worst part, though. They're all covered in those zit-like things, just like the rabbit. We're deciding to cut the trip short and get the fuck out of here. The map says there's a ranger station about 40 miles to our west, and James said we can get there by tomorrow afternoon if we really move. Both of us are at this point where really moving sounds like a great plan. Seven 6/1994, 12:30 a.m. We walked fast and we walked far. The whole way we saw dead animals. They weren't as tightly clustered together as they were around our tent, but we still saw a lot. I remember walking under the tree where the ground was just littered with dead wasps. When I looked up, there was a huge nest with nothing flying around it. The forest is almost silent, too. No birds, no insects, and even their sounds are far and few between. I never realized how omnipresent their din was until it was nearly gone. Fuck, just a minute ago, the first live deer we'd seen all day walked into the lit area around our tent. It stared at us for a while, on the outskirts of where the light fell, and when it turned around, I saw a dead fawn hanging halfway out of her body. As the deer trotted away, the fawn slid out and hit the ground with a wet thud. Still connected to its mother by the tangle of afterbirth that stretched out until it slid out a few feet later. Fuck everything. Good luck trying to sleep tonight, Mel. Okay, something just happened while we were sleeping and I'm freaking the fuck out. And I can barely breathe and I don't know what to do other than to write it down to make more sense of it. The lightning came and just stayed. The whole forest lit up. James and I tried to convince each other that it was just the weather, but it stayed for a whole minute, then 2. I begged James not to go outside, but he unzipped the tent and went out. I panicked. I didn't want to be alone, so I followed him, and the entire sky, not just one area where the lightning might be, it was white. Brighter than the sun at noon. It hurt my eyes real bad to look at it, and James was squinting hard, too. I squeezed my eyes shut to recover a little, and when I reopened them, he was gone. I ran around and looked, and I didn't see him until I turned back around, and he was right there again, staring at the sky, except he was wrong. He didn't answer when I screamed his name. He didn't even blink. And I can see bumps starting to form on his neck and his face. The light was so bright. I pushed James to try to get his attention, and when I did, the area on his shirt where I pushed got soaked with something. Well, I know what it was, but I couldn't look. I can't. He's still outside and he's not moving, just standing there, staring at that terribly bright sky. His pupils are gone and all that's left is the blue and white. He's different, he's wrong. His skin is getting worse and I'm here fucking terrified. Little bumps are popping up on my hand while I write this and they're coming to a head, and now one of them just broke open and that's my blood on the page. I know the wetness I feel on my thighs is blood too. Blood, signifying the end of what I'd been waiting to tell James on our anniversary next week. I keep thinking about the dead fawn sliding out of its mother. I'm going to wrap this journal up in a bag and run in the direction of the ranger station. I don't know what else to do. I'll leave it under a tree or in some safe spot right off the trail so somebody can find it if something happens to me on the way. This page is pretty soaked through right now. I have to go before I get worse. Before James gets worse. The light is so bright. And that's where the diary ends. As soon as I read it and typed out what was inside, I mailed it to the CDC because I have no fucking idea what's going on with that lady and her husband, and I sure as hell don't want to catch anything. The last page she wrote on was disgusting. I wish I'd been wearing gloves when I touched it. It was encrusted with dried stuff, probably the pus she wrote about, and it smelled awful. I washed up real good and left the note for the CDC guys to be careful with it. I'm pretty reluctant to go back to those woods again, but I'm just being stupid. I bet the whole thing was a prank by some high school assholes, and I'm going to waste the time of some pretty important guys when they get what I mailed over. Still, I'm more than a little creeped out. Everything that lady wrote about is so far-fetched, but I still wonder. I wonder because I vaguely remember hearing about some massive animals dying off back at that part of the state in the mid-90s. It's probably something else, though. It had to be. I hope you ghouls enjoyed this New Hampshire creepypasta. I really like this one. It's really creepy. I don't know. Something about just seeing like a load of dead animals like strewn out on the floor. Like, I don't know, man. It's creepy as heck. What else? Christmas is coming up, and hopefully Monday I will have a good creepy Christmas video. Hopefully we'll see what happens. My kid is off for like 2 weeks and I totally forgot. So yeah, 10 out of 10. I have the worst memory ever. But as always, ghouls, the last video will be on the top left. The next video will be on the bottom left. All my social medias are on the screen as well as in the description box below. And remember, there's always someone or something watching you.